Welcome to day 8 of the 12 Days of Christmas Business Growth Advent Calendar. Today is a super special day. You've got a little bit of fun with money that you get to open up and unwrap for this day as we talk with a very special guest, Leah Lowenthal, who actually came to me because of our mutual friend, Amelia Fortes, who's also part of this amazing gift extravaganza. So I'm so excited. This is our first conversation with each other, and she is going to be helping us work out some of our money kinks so that we can go into 2024 feeling super comfy with money and ready to bring in the abundance. So welcome, Leah.
Thank you so much for that lovely intro. Hello, so lovely to be here.
Yes, I'm so grateful to be here with you as well. And honestly, if I'm being fully transparent, I need this conversation just as much as I'm sure all of our viewers do as well. So I'm nervous and excited and can't wait to really dive into the conversation around money with you.
Amazing. Yeah, I think anything money related can feel, especially money mindset, we start kind of diving into those feelings that have been maybe sitting there for quite some time that we always relate back to our money. So I think it's just to say it's really normal to feel like when we're going to go into this subject, because we tend to like to avoid it or kind of put it in that corner. So let's bring it to the
Uh-huh.
center stage.
Yes, I love it. I love it. It's such a good way to kick off the year. And I wanted to start by just asking you, have you always been comfortable with money?
Oh, hell no.
I
And
had a
I think
feeling you were
that's,
going to say that.
yeah, that's the whole reason I started what I did. And I think often when you look at the people who really are in something that they really care about and they want to share with others, so much I think comes from the experience of having had that problem yourself. And even to this day, I would say I still have problems with being comfy with money. So what that means though changes and shifts. And I think it will for the rest of all of our lives, because we could have problems with debt, which is the kind of the beginning of my journey into trying to get better with it, which I can go into a bit more detail. But also when you start making money, then you have a whole set of new problems of what do I do with that money? Where do I put it? How do I use it? How do I invest? So the opportunities and the challenges are in a way endless. And that's not to say, oh my gosh, it's all doom and gloom, because I definitely believe that it can be fun and we can really embrace our finances in a way that becomes really joyful and a fun process that we do want to engage in. But yes, my journey definitely has been rocky. And I think the term get comfy with money has changed throughout my journey as well as what that even means. So whether that means having money in my bank account, I feel good with that. Or maybe it's my feelings around money or just my limiting beliefs that I've had about it and how they shift. So no.
Oh my gosh, so many beautiful things that we'll have to dive deeper into. And I really just want to pull out what you said about how at different levels of income, we have different things that we need to get comfortable with and different problems that come up. And I think that's really important because a lot of our viewers are probably just starting out in business and maybe seeing and hearing from people who are a few steps ahead of them down the road, and thinking you just make it look like it's so easy. But I'm over here just trying to figure out how to make sure that rent is paid every month or how to make sure that I can, pay for my bills for my business so that my website doesn't shut down. There's just so many little problems that come up there. Well, big problems that come up there that just seem like, how can I look at investing in
Mhm.
something bigger? So I really want to pinpoint that, and we can kind of dive into that a little bit later in the conversation. But let's kind of backtrack. So what did your story look like? Can you kind of paint the picture for us?
Of course, yeah. So it's funny because it's not, I never studied finance. I'll just start by saying that. So I don't have a finance background. I didn't set out and love maths at school and want to learn more about business finance. It was quite an organic journey, and I'm quite a creative person. So when I was starting I finished school and I went in to try and start studying, and I realized I didn't want to go to college or university. I wanted to do my own thing. And so I loved music, but I didn't want to be a musician. So I started kind of in a tour management capacity. So I was working with with a lot of artists and musicians and athletes and public speakers and loving the work, but finding that there was this massive disconnect between what they were doing in their talents and how they were expressing what they were really good at, and then the business side or the finance side. So I started to kind of quite naturally just take those pieces on and go, oh, well, you're not okay, you go focus on doing your art and being amazing. I'll take care of what's happening in the back end. And so that was kind of the start, without me consciously knowing that that's what I was doing. But that's, I guess, where my knowledge gathering started to come, and I started to see that gap of knowledge or of passion, even, because a lot of people aren't passionate about the business side and the numbers. They just want them taken care of so that they can focus on the thing that they want to spend time on. So that's kind of where it started, I guess. And then being in my 20s, I was in quite a few different jobs in different industries. I was in sales. I was a kids entertainer. I used to make balloon animals. I sold wedding dresses. Like, I tried so many different things. And then I read this book, The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, which that was my moment. I think I was 23 and I just went, this is it. I want to be a business owner. I need to do my own thing. So I started creating and thinking of all the different things I wanted to do. So my first business was I created round and square yoga mats. So I made them, they were massive. They were like 180 centimeters wide. And I made a massive purchase from China. I ordered 1,000 mats and I set out to kind of do this. And what happened was I had not aligned my passion with my bank account. I did not have a business plan. I had no strategy, and I had no real excitement for being in that industry at all. I thought it was a good idea and I just went with it. And so subsequently, I didn't put any energy in, and I didn't end up selling. I sold a handful, but I didn't sell anywhere near enough to cover the costs that we'd outlaid by doing it. So I ended up with a lot of debt. I ended up with about 27,000 pounds, which let's go about 50,000 US dollars, I think that is, of credit card debt. And I was like, okay, so this is my new challenge. So the business closed and I was still left with this debt because it was personal debt and I didn't know what to do. So to start with, like, there was a lot of, and I guess this happens every time I've had debt since, because even, when you're building your business, even personally, you may still dip in and use your credit card. And those feelings that I get around money have resurfaced time and time again that take me back to that point when I first had that big amount of debt that I needed to pay off. And I just figured out that I needed to do something about it rather than hiding it and pretending and continuing on. So the first thing was conversations. So I started to open up and tell people. And there is so much power in talking about money to other people. And I think I saw that on your story just before you just asked that question, like, do you talk to people about money? Who's your network that you talk to about money? And I thought, first, well, I don't have that myself. And so over time, I developed relationships. One was my mom, one was a close friend, and the space they held with no judgment to kind of talk it through helped me to then figure out a plan to get out of debt. Now, I won't say it was fancy, and I don't think that there's like a magic sprinkle that you do and debt's gone. But the most important thing was just deciding to start and to write it all out and see what was owed so I could work on a plan to pay it back. So through that, fast forward a few years or a decade, let's say, the pandemic hit. And at that point, I was working with a lot of people in the live event space. So still musicians, public speakers, and athletes mainly. And come March, everything just paused instantly. All my income was gone because I was relying on their live events to go ahead. And that's basically when Get Comfy with Money was born, because I was in a position which I'd never been in before, really unique, where I had no money coming in, but also I had no work. So I had a clean slate and I could start fresh. So I went to my brother's house in Australia, stayed with him and his wife and baby for 6 months, and became a bit of a part-time carer and helped look after the kid while they were working, and built Get Comfy with Money. And it was basically an amalgamation of all the things I'd learned from working with people and trying to figure out who I wanted to serve, who I wanted to help. And so I guess in a way I was trying to help me or younger me who'd made those decisions. And over time, it's progressed into that sweet spot that you get between when you're a business owner and your personal and your business finances meet, and they're interrelated and they're interconnected. And that's the area that I now spend most of my time working in. So there you have
Mm.
it.
Oh my gosh, and here we are. And
Yeah.
what a beautiful story. First off, just thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I think that it is so important for people to hear what this business growth journey really looks like. We see
Yeah.
the highlights on social media, we see the content that people want us to see, but we don't always get to like sit down and see like those moments when people are staying on the couch and building a business, those moments where they get into $50,000 worth of debt. A lot of people don't even know that people are, taking out loans to start their business. They
Yeah.
just don't know where to go. And so I really appreciate you for just sharing that in all transparency. And something that you said that just was like, whoa, okay, I needed to hear this at one point too, was that when you were starting the yoga mat business, how your passion didn't match your bank account.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my gosh, that, because I think that a lot of times, and this is why I wanted to have you as part of the 12 days count of Christmas, because I feel like a lot of times we have these really big ideas and
Mm-hmm.
we really want to make it happen, but we forget that money does have to play a factor in what it is that we're doing. And if we're not able to like kind of be aligned financially, then sometimes that's going to impact our success. And so, with that, I'm curious, like, what advice do you have for people who they have a big goal and they kind of need to like align their finances with that goal, and maybe they're a little bit scared or they're just not sure, or maybe they're super excited but they might need to pump the brakes a little bit, and where do you feel like they need to look first?
I love that question. I often see your financial system as like, I call it your finance flow system. So there's kind of five key areas that I would put all of the different challenges or areas for you to focus on into. So they are debt, spending, saving, income, and investment. So I kind of see just a brief overview of them, and then I'll come back to your question of like on where to start. So in fact, where I would start is to kind of assess your relationship with all of those areas, because then you'll know when you say, I'm not good with money or I'm struggling with money, this gets you deeper into understanding actually what the area is that you need to focus on first. So we're looking at kind of a bit of a bigger holistic picture here. So debt is a great place to start. So if you have debt, how can you start a plan to figure out getting out of debt? And I say that not because you need to be out of debt before you can do anything else, but if you have debt, that's kind of like a leaky bucket. So everything you do, that money is just going to keep flowing out unless you have a plan that's going to kind of help move that on. Then you start looking at your spending. So this is all the money leaving your account. So this could be your fixed costs. It also kind of feeds into your relationship with money and how you feel. So whether you're mindful with spending, where there may be some type of guilt about your spending. So either you're spending lots and you don't know what's happening in your account, or you're scared to spend because you always feel like you're not able to do that because you don't have the funds. Then we start looking into savings. So this is probably the area in regards to your vision and kind of what you asked there about aligning with what your bigger goals are and making sure you can actually achieve those in a financial way. So for me, savings is the only money that you actually keep. So often when we think of savings, there's this feeling of withholding from yourself, like, oh, I've put that in savings. But actually, all the other money you're giving away, all that money is someone else's, and the only money you have is your savings. So the
Mm.
relationship you have with your savings and how you develop that, that's special, and that is attached to your future. That is the area for focus when it comes to figuring out your goals and the targets that you want to achieve, and then how to do that in a financial way. So it's all very well and good to say, I want to buy a house. I have a goal, I want to buy a house. I have a goal, I want to build a business. But how do you do that if you don't have the financial goals that sit beside or behind that? So with your savings, I always say to think of kind of 4 areas with that. One is like the time length. So what's the deadline? When do you want to have this saved by? So if we're thinking of buying a house, when do you want to buy a house? Oh, that's in 5 years' time. Okay, great. So now we have a deadline. And then the next is how much. So what is it that you need to save to achieve that goal? I actually have a great little savings calculator on one of my spreadsheets that helps you work this out. So you can put your beginning date and your end date and how much you want to save, and it will tell you how much you need to be paying monthly. So it kind of gives you that ability to think of all of your savings goals side by side. Because if you just have a pot of money that's for savings, either you spend it on anything, which may not be attached to your goals, or you spend it on nothing because you're scared to tap into that because it needs to be there for just in case. So being intentional about what your goals are and attaching that to your savings numbers, that's a really good place to start. And then the other 2 areas, just to briefly touch on. So the next one would be income. So thinking of all the money that you're making, all the different ways, how can you build an income ecosystem so that you've got different sources, different methods that tap into different skills or levels of involvement that you want to have. And then lastly, I kind of call it your cherry on top, which is investment. So this is like the pinnacle. So how do you make your money grow for you? So what can you do? What can you invest in? And that doesn't necessarily mean just stocks and shares or crypto or even property. It could be the way you think about investing. For example, I work with a lot of athletes, and for them, they invest in their bodies because that is their tool. They need their body to be well so they can do what they do. So, what does investment mean, and how can you start developing something that aligns with what you're really passionate about as well?
Okay, beautiful. So debt, spending, savings, income, and investment.
That's it.
Wow. There's so much there. And a lot of
Yeah.
that makes me think about like kind of the foundations for your personal finances. Do
Mm.
these also apply when it comes to business? Like I can see how investment crosses that line.
Mhm.
Do you have the same kind of outline when you're looking at like people who are looking to get their business finances in order?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always say start with your personal finances first, because
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're a small business owner, they impact each other directly. So once you know what your personal finance situation looks like, I call that your personal survival budget. So how much do you need to survive? That's what your business needs to generate, or you need to generate somewhere so that you can keep yourself going. So then you can work on the business. So when you start focusing on your business, again, yes, you can break it down into those areas. So debt may be business loan, maybe you have friends or family who've helped you, maybe there's credit cards there. So there's still the area of debt. Then spending's the same thing. It's about understanding your outgoings and all the expenses you have within your business. The categories will be slightly different to your personal ones, and sometimes they kind of is a blend again because you're like, oh, is this a business expense or not? So having that separation is useful too. So you have 2 different places, so you can see that really easily when it comes to tax time. And then savings as well is important if you have visions or goals that are attached to the business. So this is where you'd be thinking of, for example, say you had a product and you wanted a store in the future, or like a physical space. You may be wanting to save towards some type of business related goal. Same with income. So everything kind of still applies. It's like a blueprint from personal to business, but you're wanting to focus first on your foundations in personal. And then with your business investment, the business may be the investment. Or another thing to think of is personal development. So maybe you want to have an allowance to focus on your learning and development, and maybe that
Mm-hmm.
exists within the business as well.
Yeah. Okay, beautiful. And we recently on the Simply Healthy Marketing website, we did an entrepreneur's gift giving guide where I did put your financial workbook for business, but I also saw that there's the personal financial workbook there too.
Yeah.
So for all of y'all, you can go out and get that for yourselves, get it for your friends, start the money conversations. But thank you so much for breaking that down. And then, the piece that comes into that I love that you shared is that investment part and how it doesn't always have to look like bro investing, like
Yes.
crypto, Bitcoin. Yeah. Like it can also be investing in yourself. And
Mm.
I can really relate to that because I've never I've never felt a super huge resonance with investing in stocks and things like that. It is
Yeah.
something I want to learn about eventually. But when I think about investing personally, I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to invest in courses. I'm going to invest in education. I'm going to invest in my business and all these different things that make me feel lit up and more whole. And so I
Yeah.
love that that's just something that you are also teaching, is that like investment is much wider range.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, like, what are some of the things that you realize pretty quickly, like at the beginning of, growing Get Comfy with Money, that you had to invest in, just so that people who are starting out a business, like they know, like where should they be looking first to
Yeah.
invest? And is that going to be different for everyone?
Yeah, great question. I think one thing to note first is within those 5 different areas of finance, there's some fluidity as to your own experience of what fits where. So, for example, investment. I buying a property and I have a property, my mortgage that I pay, that I consider investment. Other people consider it debt. Other people may consider it savings. So you also have the freedom and flexibility to kind of move the money you have into the different areas yourself. So for example, so for me, I'm very excited and happy to have a home as an investment. So that's like one of my investments. And I think it's interesting because it kind of oscillates between income and investment when you say what were some of the things I invested in. So there's also this point of my like having a property was one income stream slash investment, which has
Mhm.
allowed me to have the freedom to build my business with a really strong foundation. So I believe in the security that you get when you have a business of having multiple streams of income rather than having one source of income. So contrary to how it feels being in one secure permanent job, if you lose that one secure permanent job, that's all your money. So if we have multiple sources, we've got different places where money's coming no matter what kind of happens with one. There's always something else. So when I was starting my own journey, I wanted to make sure that I had a few different sources that I was continually kind of drawing on to keep me going and I used to call it my mojo fund. Like it allowed me to take risks and be like, oh, well, I've got that buffer, so I can take the risks, I can do the business, put time towards my business. So I'm not just all in with no anchor, because that first time I did that and it didn't work. So as far as like things that I have learned about investing in, and I think it's interesting because my perspective when I started is different to now, and maybe it's also contradictory to what other people may decide and think. So at the beginning, social media was a block for me. I did not want to be on social media. I didn't want to engage in it. I didn't do it in my personal life very much. So the idea of having to be on it in business was very difficult. So I invested in social media support. I hired, first of all, my sister and my cousin, and then later a marketing agency to kind of help me with my content from quite like pretty much from day one. So I wanted their support in graphic design and in the copywriting to kind of help me get that going. I also invested in a VA, which is a virtual assistant, fairly soon as well. So I had a full-time VA who was working and helping me with the tech, the back end, the admin, but I was very small at that time too. So there was like, what was great was I was kept accountable, but there wasn't probably as much work needed for a second person, for someone to be there full time. I also invested in a lot of courses and other coaching to try and develop more skills, and a lot in marketing and sales, because that definitely felt like the weakness, but also in my own coaching skills and knowledge building too. So I did outlay money for those things, and there's not regret there, but I've reframed it now. So I heard a great term actually the other day, this idea of I don't need this bucket. I don't know if you've heard of this, but the idea that when you're making a decision as to whether you need to invest in something, so say there's a course that you see online and you go, this is great, it's what I need. Ask yourself, is this something that is actually going to help me, or is this something I can put in the I don't need it bucket? And I do that a lot more now. I've actually become way more economical with what I'm investing in, because the more specific I've become, the more I've grown. I know the bits I really need, and the bits I'm just maybe are more to do with imposter syndrome, or not feeling good enough, or like I need to get more knowledge and experience so that I can deliver what my value is. So there's a piece there with mindset and like becoming more confident and believing in yourself more, and then not necessarily needing to outsource so much. So I have more systems now, which is much more automated. So I don't need a full-time VA. I have someone who works a few hours a week. I have taken, for the most part, my marketing back. Now I decided not to have an agency. It felt way more authentic to try and do it and show up. And that's changed my presence as well. So I've actually kind of downsized. I've done the flip. and I only work 3 days a week. So that's, to me, the sweet spot of where I want to be.
Okay, 4-hour work week.
There we go.
I love that. And I feel like there's so much juice in what you just shared, especially when we're talking about investing in the
Mm,
places where you know your weaknesses are. Like when
yes.
you started out, you were like, okay, I know that I need help with this to help me get to where I want to go. And
Yeah.
it's going to take me longer to get there if I don't invest now. And then
Yeah.
you have that flexibility later to say, okay, now I can go back to the drawing board. Now I can rethink, like, where am I going to put my money? And I can just vouch for your social media. It's amazing. So I'm
Oh.
glad you took it over. It's great. And another piece that comes up there is I think that sometimes people are afraid to delegate, or they think they have to. Like there's
Mhm.
kind of this weird unspoken rule of like, well, like I have to get a VA, or I have to do this, I have to do that. And you kind of like totally shift that narrative and saying like, I did that. And then when
Mhm.
I needed to do something different, I did that instead. So
Mhm.
I love that. I think too, there's that piece around like not being afraid to put money in a place that's going to help you get where you need to go. And then what
Mhm.
you said too about like not investing, or, not focusing so much on what am I investing in out of fear that I'm not enough. you know I think a lot about like just energy and like scarcity versus like abundance mindset, and there we can really get sucked into that place where it's like, okay, like I don't feel like I can do this, I don't feel like I'm enough, I'm going to have to do this course and this course and this course before I even start. And while I do believe in education, I do believe that we can always like fortify ourselves. I also believe that if we have the passion, we probably have the tools needed to make that passion a reality. So I just really love that you touched on that. Um, I'm going to backtrack a little bit though, too, because mindset and savings and what you said about savings being the money that you get to keep,
Yeah.
that like felt so good in my soul when you said it. And I'm sure there's going to be some listeners who were like, whoa, never looked at that from that perspective before. So, what comes to mind for me right now is those people who, when you say the word savings, it's kind of a trigger word. And it feels like, but I never have the money to save. So, how do I even start? Can we go a little bit more into your perspective on savings and, just give some tips for people who are looking to change their mindset around it?
Mm. Yeah, so I think that particular sentiment is a great starting point of it's what I get to keep. So there's this relationship that we have where we think this is money I can't touch. So if you can kind of get with the concept of, no, this is important, this is something that I need to have because becomes my safety blanket, or it becomes the manifestation of my future dreams. That's one aspect. And the other is literally the mechanics of how to make it happen. So the reality with money is however much money you have in your account, most likely it's going to be gone by the end of the month, because whatever you have, you will spend. So we need to kind of almost trick ourselves or have mechanisms to help, let's say it from the nicer side, to help set ourselves up for success rather than hoping that we have some money left over. So very simply, I would say, save before you spend. So whatever money you make, and this is sometimes challenging when you work for yourself or you don't have regular income. So if you don't have one paycheck a month that comes in, you're probably like, well, then how do I do that? Because I don't just get a paycheck and I can put a percentage away. But you can use the framework of choosing a percentage that you want to put towards your savings each month. So when you look at your budget and you figure out your numbers for everything, you decide how much you could afford to put towards savings. It could be small. It doesn't have to be 10%. 10% is kind of like an industry standard of like a good amount, but that's also based on what each of us make a different amount. So 10% to somebody is going to be irrelevant to somebody else. But start with
Mhm.
something, and you could choose that percentage that every time you receive a payment, you put that aside. So you continue to put that no matter when those payments are coming in. So that could be one way that you set yourself up, is an automatic transfer, depending on what bank accounts you have, whether that's possible or not. But to just make that conscious decision to have a percentage that goes away into a savings account, which is potentially less easy to touch, so that you've got that happening on your behalf, because time goes fast. And we often think, oh, it's not, it doesn't mean anything. If I'm saving $10 a month or $20 a month, it's nothing. But if you think of how time passes and you are not thinking of that money, you're not looking at it every day, that's just going to build in your sleep, essentially. And then you'll, in a few months or a few years, you might look back and go, oh, wow, actually, it's growing. And that gives you the
Mhm.
motivation to want to save more. So for me, it really starts with being very connected to what the reason for saving is in the first place. So as I said before, maybe don't just have an account that's savings. Think about what that account is and give it a name that brings you a lot of joy. So this
Mhm.
could be, future house fund. This could be holiday to Mexico. This could be like my Mojo fund, like I said. So every time I put money into that Mojo fund, I'm like, yeah, that is giving me my mojo. And I feel good about putting money into that place rather than, can I afford this? The other thing is, whenever you get a lump sum of money or like a one-off payment, which may come from time to time, a gift, it could be money you weren't expecting. You think what you want to do in those occasions when that money comes through. Maybe you decide some of it you spend and some of it you use to bolster your savings. So it doesn't necessarily have to be this big scary thing of I can't afford it. It can stay small and it can just slowly grow as you go. The
Mhm.
benefit of percentages is that as you earn more, you will save more. So if you're going off a percentage rather than a dollar amount, that means it will continue to increase. And I say that with giving as well. So often people say to me, oh, I want to have a certain amount of my budget that I'm giving, but I can't afford that yet. And I say, well, start with a percentage. So as you earn
Mhm.
more, you're going to continue to give. So that might be a small amount now, but in the future, it will be a lot more. So rather than not starting at all, start now, because it's never too late or it's never too early to start saving.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I love the idea of naming my savings account. Right now I have like I think of them as like money buckets and I have like different ones and I never thought of naming them. So now I'm gonna
Yeah.
put some energy into that because like
Yeah.
what I'm getting from everything you're sharing and everything that you teach is that we're shifting the energy around money. We're making money fun,
Yes.
And I think that like even when I hear you talk about it, like the enthusiasm in your voice and just like how excited you sound. Like this is not a drab money conversation, This is just like a good time. And so
Yeah.
I think that's a really big piece. And then also I wanted to look at so, you said the key piece here is that when you start to make more money, that savings goes up. So some people think like, oh, well, if I can only have like $10 to put in savings, what's that going to do? I guess I'm just going to go
Mhm.
buy some food or something,
Yeah.
And I really like how you were pinpointing that like it does add up. And so
Mhm.
maybe like for those of you out there who are starting on this savings journey, give yourself a week or give yourself 30 days, give yourself a month. And if you only have that $10 a week, put that aside and just start to see like what happens in a month if you have more, but just like commit to like Leah was saying that 10%. And then at the end of the month, see how much you saved. You
Yeah.
might be surprised. And It'll also put in perspective, because I have had this experience before where it really puts in perspective, like if I do spend that money on food, how much I'm really spending too,
Yeah.
and then we really start to think about investments again. And it's like, well, is that what you want to be investing in? So thank you
There's
so
a
much
good
for sharing that.
Yeah, there's just one more thing to add. There is a direct correlation to spending when it comes to saving as well, because
Mm,
often when we set the other side is sometimes people set unrealistic savings goals. So they go, oh, I'm going to put a couple of hundred or 1,000 into my savings account. And then I don't know if you've done this. I definitely used to. You dip in, there's that creep, you dip back into your savings and pull it back out. So then every time
yes.
you take money out, you're feeling guilty. You're like, I shouldn't do this. And that's actually a result of you not actually properly accounting for how much everything is costing you. So when you know your spendings inside out and you understand how much you actually need, and this is not just your bills or your fixed costs, this is also your fun spending. So I am a massive believer in having a fun spendings allowance each month, which you can
Mm,
base on looking at kind of like the average of your past few months to see like roughly how much you need. But maybe you need an entertainment budget, or like say you like live music, so you always want to have an allowance to do that, or you like to eat food out, or even takeaways. So, or eat, I don't know what you call it in the States. We say takeaway.
we say take out, but it's basically the
Take
same
out.
thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whatever it is that brings you joy, you need to have some spending allowance for that too, because it's kind of like trying to diet. You're not going to succeed if you're like withholding yourself from everything. So you need to enjoy your money as well. So by being realistic about how much everything costs you, and you're putting a realistic amount away, then you won't be dipping into that savings. Sorry, you'll be spending within the amount that you've allocated.
And one of the bonus gifts that you're sharing with us, which you're actually sharing two with us for this calendar, is your cash flow templates. And so I'm sure that with all of those, you can start to look at that budgeting aspect and get a plan together. So thank you so much for sharing that. And that also gives us a good segue into the second bonus gift that you're sharing, which
Yes.
is your profit persona quiz.
Yes.
I am so excited to see what everyone's profit personas are. Like, so all of you who take the profit persona quiz, DM me and tell me, and I will tell you right now, because I took the quiz and I will tell you what I got. So first off, it's an amazing quiz. All the questions are great. And I was like, wow, like it really makes you think about like, what kind of spender are you? What kind of
Yeah.
investor are you? Like, how do you make plans and go about it?
Yeah.
So my outcome was that I'm the reveler, which is
Ah.
yeah, yeah. Okay. That's a good response. That's a good response. I was like, I think this is good. Let's read it. So it
Yeah.
says, you're all about the fun of the ride. You want to enjoy luxuries and come alive when you're doing things that bring you joy and excitement. It's important for you to feel passionate about your business, to be connected to it. You thrive in the process more than the results. 100%, Leah, you were spot on. That is 100% who I am. And it's something where, I think it can sometimes get me into trouble because
Mm.
it means that I can be a little bit impulsive at times.
Mm.
Um, and I think that's really backtracking to what you said about your passions matching your bank account. That's what can get me into trouble sometimes. And it might be part of being a reveler, would you
Mm-hmm.
say?
Absolutely. I am also a reveler.
Oh, virtual high five.
That's
Yes, yes.
it.
Revelers unite.
Yeah. So I think that's also where the aspect of needing money to be fun comes from for me. So if I'm going to show up and I'm going to engage in something, it needs to be fun. There has to be an element there of joy for me to want to do it. So in case you haven't noticed now, like I'm very passion led. I will go for work if it makes me happy, if I feel enjoyment. And the same has to be said with money. So our challenge, so like the darker side of our ego, is that we need to be careful of balancing the fun of the moment with the future that we want. So ensuring that as much as taking care of enjoying ourselves now, we're looking after the version of ourselves that we want to work towards too, because we can be impulsive. It can mean that we can feel trapped with our finances because we're in that loop of continually overspending. So we need to be very aware of our spending habits and not necessarily completely crush them, because I think we do need to enjoy our money, but we also need to make sure that we're putting plans in place for the future.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to dive into the other personas with you because this is just spot on who I am in every
Mm.
aspect. And it really does speak to some of the problems I've had. And I'm also really curious to see in the community, like how many revelers we have out there. Because what it makes me think of is that as an entrepreneur, it just seems like such a common energy that the reason that we're even on this path is because we don't want to do anything that doesn't light us up. You know, we want to have that freedom. We want to have control over our lives. We want to live the lifestyle where we can travel and work from anywhere. You know, we want to connect with people. We want to say yes when we have an idea and not have anybody who can tell us no. And so
Yeah.
it'll be really be interesting. Yeah, you're like, yes, that one.
That one for sure. I
Yeah.
always say,
So
yeah.
oh no, go for it.
No, I was gonna say, I always say I want to work when I want, where I want, and how I want. And that's the drive.
Yes, honey,
Yeah.
absolutely. And don't ever try to tell me anything different. And,
Yes.
you know, I think it's something that in my own growth journey, and maybe you can relate to this, but like because of that, I've had moments where I had to figure it out. I had to take a bridge job. I had to do something to supplement because it was just like, you know what? Like the passion is way more important than the profit to me right now, and so whatever it takes, I'm going to do this. And if it means that I'm putting in a bunch of work and not getting paid, like that ends up happening. And so I
Mhm.
feel like where your work comes in is creating the foundation to support us, like you said, with, you know, getting your property and having the multiple streams of income so that
Yeah.
we can just let this part of ourselves really blossom instead of stifling it.
Yes, I love how you put that. I don't think I could have said it any better. It's the thing that drives me constantly to find solutions for how we can do better with our money, because I'm a money coach, but I am not money driven. And I am not
Mm-hmm.
profit focused. I'm not target driven. So you'll never see in my marketing, I'll help you achieve 10K months, or I'm never going to put a number to what I'm going to help you achieve, because you're the one that's setting that goal and I'm going to help you achieve that goal. So what it is for you is going to be completely different to somebody else. I also resonate with the idea of having multiple things. So I'm a project-based person. I love to have a clear beginning, middle, and end to something. So you'll see that in the coaching work I do, in the projects I take on with businesses, in the courses I offer. There's this kind of cycle to them. Everything has the seasons. And that is really sacred to me. So that also is part, I think, of the reveler personality is I thrive when I have multiple things going on at the same time, when I have multiple streams of income happening at the same time, and I feel like it's a ride and we're just having a good time.
Oh my gosh, you're speaking to my heart. I'm just like, me and Leah were meant to meet each other.
We were.
We really were. Okay, so we've reveled in being a
Yes.
reveler, but let's talk about the other personas here.
Yeah. So I'm sure you don't know anything about them yet because you
I
came up
don't
as
yet.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
so excited.
We can't discount the others. The others are all amazing as well in their own ways. So the first one is the go-getter. So this one you'll see a lot in entrepreneurship and leadership as well. So the go-getters kind of drive is authenticity, but success. They really, really strive for success. So think of them as the ones, they have their eye on the prize. They're the ones who are striving for new targets. They're probably quite competitive, and maybe not against others, but themselves. So they have goals and they really want to hit them. They're usually pretty self-motivated, and they're really good at being their own cheerleader, kind of going within to get the motivation that they need rather than external. They know what they need and what they want. So we also have traits of some of the others too, but they're very, very clear on that. They can tend sometimes on the darker side to maybe become workaholics, because they are very focused on the goals and achieving those, which sometimes when it comes to like relationships with other people, they could overvalue the results and not necessarily the connections or the other people along the way. So there's a piece there about making sure that you're open and don't see that you have to do everything on your own. So even though you are motivated and really driven, it doesn't mean you have to be in this on your own. So so the negotiation side of the go-getters is also quite strong. They understand their value, and they're very good at making sure they're kind of driving those harder bargains to get what their value is and get what it's worth. So I see these as like the visionaries, the ones who are really good big thinkers, and they really inspire other people. So other people will see them as a person that they want to follow, because they can watch them taking their ideas and turning them into action in a way that seems quite natural to them. So these are very special personality types, and we need these people because they keep everybody else inspired and driving forward. There's that determination that comes through.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
So there's your go-getter.
The go-getters, some that I know are coming to mind, and
Yeah.
those are the ones I look up to. So I love that. Okay, so we got the go-getters.
We've
Who's
got the
next?
go-getter. Yes. And then we have the balancer. So the balancer, and I definitely have a few traits of the balancer as well, but the balancers like to get things right. So they're the ones that you'll see that will nurture a business for kind of long-term sustainable success. So they're in it for the long game. They understand the long-term vision. They also have a lot of importance in relationship building. So they want to build strategies that are strong. They want to take their time. They want to work towards their goals, but they want it to really be very high quality. So they want to do things really well, really thoroughly, a lot of attention to detail, and a lot of fulfillment from that sense of belonging and being part of a community. So that their approach is very much, if everyone else wins, then I win. So they want that, they need that to really thrive. The darker side of their personality is that they can be quite self-critical. They can sacrifice themselves a lot for the sake of the community or people around them. If they want everyone else to be doing so well, they can sometimes put themselves last. Also, because they're so meticulous with detail, they can sometimes have a lot of indecision because they're not sure what the right way is, and they want to make sure they're doing everything right. This can also kind of tip into perfectionism as well. So they don't necessarily feel confident to put themselves out there yet because they're not sure if it's exactly how they would like it to be. But they're very measured. They are very good at researching and exploring opportunities and understanding the full picture of things. And they're actually really good at kind of creating good savings plans, or anything that requires like lots of different pots or kind of buckets, like you were saying before, and understanding like the foundation. They just need to work on how to then put all of those tools that they create and have to good use. So they're great planners. They are really, really good at, as I said, providing like high quality, so people feel like they're really taken care of. And if you invest in someone, so if you work with someone who is a balancer, you know that they're going to do the job really well. So you'll be happy investing your money in a business that's led by a balancer, because you know it's going to be done really well.
I love that. And I can imagine that in our current society, balancers probably don't get the respect that they deserve,
Yeah.
because people are looking for like the quick fix, and they're in it for the long haul. So
Yeah.
blessings to our balancers for
Yes. Love
sure.
that
They can
balancers.
teach us a lot.
And then
Beautiful.
our last one is the smooth sailor. So our smooth sailors, they want things to flow with ease. So they want their finances to flow. They want their business systems to have beautiful workflows. They want everything to just kind of work with so much ease. So they're big picture thinkers. So they come up with amazing ideas. They have those kind of stroke of genius moments, and they're always striving for greater self-knowledge and looking how they can support others. So a lot of smooth sailors are coaches and teachers and mentors for that reason. So they want ease for themselves and ways to help to align what they're trying to do, what their purpose is, with how they can have more ease in everything that they're achieving. So on the kind of darker side, they sometimes care, again, similar to the balancer, they care a lot about supporting others. But these people, maybe it manifests more in tending to forget to take care of their money because they'd rather just have the ease or the harmony with other people as well. So if we're coming to negotiating, for example, they may take a not so great offer if it means that somebody else is not uncomfortable because of that negotiation. Sometimes they can feel unmotivated or might find it hard to make difficult decisions, and they can sometimes kind of leave because they're good at thinking about everything, they can not necessarily know how to execute those goals, so how to put those steps in to make them actually come. So they work really well in like joint ventures or having business partners or collaborators, so other people that they can tap into. So if they want to focus on that community-led spirit that they have, if they focus on leveraging those connections and having wealth building strategies that exist outside just them, this can really help, especially because they are so knowledgeable and they're really good at continuing to learn and develop. If they have ways to kind of bring other people in to help bring that out of them, it works for them really well. So they're big thinkers, like I said. So they see how everything is connected, and there's a lot of feeling here. So others like how a smooth sailor makes them feel. So they make you feel significant. They make you feel seen. They are empathetic. They're easygoing. They're quite a calm energy, and they continue to try and hold that space of the bigger vision.
I love that. I love that. And that actually brings me to a question about all of the personas. Do you
Mm.
feel like there are certain personas that work best with others, like
Oh, that's a
that
good
match
question.
up with each other?
Yeah. So I would say that a reveler and a balancer work really well. So for example, if you were in a relationship, if you're a reveler, so you're quite like generous and out there with your spending and your love of life and that kind of way of thinking. If you're paired up with a balancer is very much going to bring you down to earth and kind of keep it real. So
Mhm.
those two energies kind of balance each other well. And similarly, the balancer who's quite in the detail and wants things to be done well can learn a lot from a reveler, because the two of them together can kind of have that evening out. And I guess the balancer can do that quite well with the others, but maybe would conflict more with, say, a smooth sailor, because a smooth sailor wants ease, so they may not choose high quality. They may prefer to just have things done easily, whereas the balancer with a reveler would have the space to do things the right way and kind of continue to hold those systems, but that helps to ground the reveler. And then the other side, I think that, yeah, the go-getter and the smooth sailor are quite complementary as well, because the go-getter has that vision. Sorry, the two of them have the vision, but the go-getter knows how to push things forward, so they can work together on the big thinking and kind of develop those ideas, but then have a way to kind of keep the smooth sailor a bit more motivated. And then similarly, the smooth sailor is quite easygoing and can kind of neutralize some of that intense energy and need to focus on targets.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So I'm just hearing that this quiz is incredibly important, especially when it comes to having conversations about money. Because I think that's
Mm.
something that holds us back from talking with each other, is that we don't always understand each other's point of view on money.
Mm.
Or, someone might think a certain way, someone might be a go-getter, while the other person might be more of a smooth sailor, or, vice versa. Someone might be a balancer and they feel like, I'm not necessarily going to be jumping into things right away. I'm going to take my time and think about it. And I know it takes time to grow. So that's where we kind of fear those conversations. But it sounds like a great way to start a conversation with someone is to have them both take the persona quiz and learn about
Yeah.
themselves. And then they can come to each other and be like, well, who are you? Here's who I am.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how we can create a harmonious relationship with each other.
Yes, I love that. And that's like, could be personal relationships, it could be business relationships, friendships. I think we should talk more with friends about money. It
Oh,
just
yeah.
kind of, it makes it real. Like if you find out, I know in the UK, I read a statistic not that long ago that 60% of people in the UK are in credit card debt. And that's a huge proportion of the population, and we don't talk enough about the how real that is. But even just sharing that with others, I'm in debt, or, oh, this is my salary, this is what I make. And you're like, what? You make that? Like that helps us to all grow and all go up. And essentially, that's what we want. We all want to grow together. It's not about competing against each other. It's about facilitating a way for us all to grow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And taking people off of pedestals, I think, because, like you said, there are some people who, and it's totally fine, but some people do use numbers in their marketing, like hit the 6-figure mark, hit the 10K mark, whatever that may be. And I think there are other entrepreneurs, I'm sure there are some who are watching and listening to this right now who think, well, you know, they must actually be making that on a consistent basis. And
Yeah.
I'm a failure because I'm not even anywhere near that. But if they were to actually sit down and have conversations with some of those people, maybe they didn't have a 10K month that month,
Yeah.
and maybe they're in the same boat trying to kind of figure things out, because we all have our ups and downs. So I think what you're saying is so real, that like talking with our peers, having these conversations, it can really shift. It can shift a lot of things for all of us.
It can. And you know what? That marketing is probably aimed to go-getters because they're the
Yeah.
ones who will hear that and be like, yes, I want to make it, but that might not be your way. And just one thing to add that I think is really important for those who are listening, who are maybe like not feeling confident about how much they're making and they want to make more. The power of understanding your numbers, even from a simple way of knowing your outgoings and how much you spend and how much you need, is you can find out how much you need to survive, and then you can start planning what you want. So what you may find is the difference between the two is actually not as different as you thought. So your needs number may include your fixed expenses and everything that you need to kind of survive. Your wants number may also include having a holiday, being able to, go to the cinema each week or have a massage or some of those more luxurious things that you can cut back on when money's tight. But what you may notice is the difference between the two might not be, I need to be a 6-figure business owner. And that's okay. Your goals and targets have to match the ambitions that you actually have. So it's all an illusion if you're just striving for an amount of money, if it's not actually helping you achieve the type of lifestyle that you actually want.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. I feel like I could just sit here and talk with you for hours more. But of course, we have to honor each other's time, because as a reveler,
Yeah.
I'm sure you have so many things you're getting into. So the last question that I want to ask you, and I just want to say thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us. I know there are so many of our listeners and viewers who are going to feel so different about money at this point in the interview than they did coming in. So thank you so much. And
So
yeah, thank you. And the last question was, what is your number one growth tip for 2024? And this could be a money tip, a business tip, a personal tip, or anything that comes up for you that you want to share.
I love it. And you know what I like is that we haven't pre-prepared this. So I haven't had time to think about this answer. So I'm just going to say the first thing that came to my mind. So I am prioritizing rest next year. And the reason that is important for growth is because, coming back to this idea of everything being cyclical, so everything goes in circles. And what I've noticed about myself is I am really good at working and working and working and then going away on holiday. But when I'm on holiday, I take my laptop because I love working. So what I've already done, I've already done this for 2024, is I've mapped out my holiday plan. So instead of mapping out my business goals, I've mapped out my holiday goals. And
Yes.
what is so cool, I've basically set it up so it's 10 weeks on and it's 2 weeks off. So next year I have a holiday every 10 weeks. So basically the end of each quarter. So I'm doing a new cycle. And so within that, I know that the 2 weeks are going to be actual switch off time. So within the 10, I'm going to feel really good to be working hard. And then when I'm switched off, I'm switched off. So I'll get a proper recharge. And within each quarter, I'm going to have one targeted goal of something I want to achieve within that time, because I also know about myself, I work better when I have a goal. So if I know I'm working towards something, that's going to happen within a chapter. So any goals I set, there's going to be allocated one for each quarter rather than 4 to achieve at the same time.
I love that. Okay, like I'm stealing that. I'm totally like, I want to do 10 weeks on, 2 weeks off. That's such a great idea. And when I think it was Marie Forleo who said, like, whatever time we give ourselves to complete a goal, we will complete it within that time.
Yeah.
So I believe in you. I know you got
Thank
this,
you.
and such a great idea. Thank you for sharing that tip with us. And for our listeners who want to stay connected with you in 2024, where can they find you?
Best place is Instagram. So it's at Get Comfy with Money. You can't forget it because that's what you all want. So yeah, you can either follow me on there and see content. You can also take my profit persona quiz, which I know CJ is going to be sharing with you. You can also see the link on my bio. It won't be actually launched, so you're the first to see right now because it's launching on the 20th. So that's it's just after it's actually going to be coming out. So you're getting a little preview. So jump on and take that profit persona quiz, see who you are. The cash flow statement is there as well. It is great for you to kind of map out 2024 and start thinking about what you are projecting or would like to happen next year financially for you and your business. So feel free to jump on and try that. But yeah, best place to find me is on Insta.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Leah. And I hope you have a beautiful holiday season.
Thank you. And you too. It's been wonderful.